quite a moving speech, at least for me, and being a mathematician, I don't really deal in the emotional side of life, so thank you for that. Which is a great lead-in, actually, to Professor Ulrich Weinberg, who's going to come and talk to us today about design thinking, about humans and how humans have a place in the future world of software and technology and artificial intelligence. Professor Weinberg, you direct the design thinking school at an IT institute, the Hasso-Plattner Institute, not far from here. Being a human amongst all of these IT people cannot be easy, I have to tell you. What I found very interesting about our discussion was you wrote the book Network Thinking, which has the focus on discussing the difficulty of technology and how we teach our students about technology today. You're going to tell us a little bit about a paradigm change. Most speeches that I listen to, when someone starts out with, I have a paradigm change, I yawn, I put on my poker face, I smile, and I promptly go to sleep inside. I would ask you today not to do that because I have been in artificial intelligence since 1995. That's what I did for my master's degree. What I can also tell you is there are paradigm changes, and they come in personalities that are not President Modi, who is leading a paradigm change in India. They are not necessarily big names that you see every day in the press. And when I think of Professor Ulrich Weinberg, whom I admittedly did not know before today, and he sits and he tells me about how IQ, the measurement of our individual quotient for intelligence, needs to be removed, and we need to think about a term I learned this morning, WeQ, to putting the team in focus. And I listened to our speakers who are thanking their colleagues, like Karl Novak or Josip, for getting us these brilliant speakers. I think, wow, we really are a team. So if I may, I'm excited to hear about a paradigm change in how we teach our students today and how we can take the individual out of the center point and put the we into the center point. Professor Weinberg. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that very nice introduction. And I hope I don't make you fall asleep with a paradigm shift. They have the same thing happening to me when I listen to it. Actually, what I want to actually continue to tell a little private story, you know, because the story about my 30 last years, because 30 years ago, that was my first getting in touch with digitalization. And when I came in the morning and I saw that kind of at the left, think different, and at the right, go digital, I was guessing that most of the people will talk about the right thing. Go digital, talk about technology. I would love to talk about the thinking different and what happened to me 30 years ago in terms of making me think in a different way, and what we try to do at Potsdam with 240 students right now and about 4,000 professionals every year to make them think different in the world which is actually defined now very, very intensively through digital technology. Just a short question, who of you does not have this kind of piece of glass in the pocket? Oh, but there's also a glass on top. So, I would like to share some of the, does that work? Yeah, oh yeah, it works. This is how it looks actually at our school at Potsdam, where we teach something which we call design thinking. And actually we don't teach it in a traditional way, we actually make people learn a different way of approaching things. And as you see here, this is not a normal school, not a normal university anymore, it's more a kind of laboratory. And it shows a little bit, we're using digital technology, yes, but we are also using a lot of physical things, and we try to bring people together and to make them collaborate and to do something which they usually don't train at school and university, which is actually being non-competitive at the first glance. So this is the HPI, and I'm really happy that I'm surrounded by all those kind of IT people who are driving the change right now and who are actually developing the big things. which then there's Hasso Plattner here who brought the whole thing, and he is financing that with his private money as the founder or co-founder of SAP. And you see we have a little diversity problem with the professors here, but just a little. So, and I'm really happy to be one of those guys that you see I'm kind of photoshopped in the back there, because I'm not the pure IT person. I did things like this up there. You see the ARD things. I focused on computer graphics, computer animation after my studies in Munich and in Berlin with art and design. I focused on computer animation 30 years ago, and I did this kind of flying logos. Our students, I always have to ask, I have to tell them what television is. You know, I think some of you might have seen these kind of logos, flying logos. That was the first time that there was a German television station using digitally produced images, flying images. And I got the chance to be involved in that and to design that and co-design that. And that changed my life. At that time, that's 30 years ago, for me it was very clear my analog way of doing things is over. There's a new time coming now, and it's huge pixels at that time, like pixels like that size, 16 colors maybe. That was kind of awful for a person who was dealing with millions of colors, analog. But I was guessing it will be changing pretty fast. So I continued on that path, and I became a professor for computer animation, computer graphics 24 years ago. I'm spending a lot of time in China as a visiting professor, and I started a thing which is called the WeQ Foundation. I'll talk about that later. But 10 years ago, I got the chance to start the School of Design Thinking in that kind of IT institute, because Hasso Plattner, he got in touch with people at Stanford University, and they were doing things like getting people out of their silos, bringing them together in little teams, like a medical student, IT student, mechanical engineer, designer, architect, bring them together and have them solve complex problems. Because they were saying, there were guys at Germany, 100 years ago, German Bauhaus, they were already building bridges between different art pieces, art parts, art departments. And they were saying, we should join forces, the theater guys with the musicians, with the architects, industrial designers. And the guys at Stanford, they were saying, like 12 years ago, we are facing problems nowadays, they are so complex. We need to have 360-degree approach. We need to combine the forces of all the people. And there is no department doing that. There were all these kind of silo departments, the medical students or law students and so on. And so they were calling people together, and Hasso Plattner, he got in touch with those guys, and he learned about that. It was very new to him, but it reminded him to the times when he started SAP, like that time 30 years ago, now more than 40 years ago. And he was saying, this is the right approach for today. So he gave a lot of money to that institution at Stanford, and then we did this partnering institute, which is now in Potsdam, very close to here. And we have 120 students every semester, representing about 70 different disciplines, about 60 different universities, about 20 different nations. It's a wild mix of people, this little university, and then we tackle problems. And we are changing a lot of things. And 6 weeks ago, we celebrated 10th anniversary, and just have to show that picture here, because we invited about 900 people from all over the world, 900 people from 40 countries, and it turned out to be the event, the biggest event for design thinking people, for professionals using design thinking and bringing it to the world. So this is just a picture and a reminder of that. We do things very different. 10 years ago, we decided not to have individual grades, so no individual measurement, no curriculum, but just project-based learning, and fully focus on teams. And not only one team is doing something, but we focus on something which we call a team of teams mode. There's a lot of discussion right now in transformation. I recently heard Mr. Zetsche of Daimler saying, we need to change 20% of our company towards a swarm organization. I think he meant something different. I think swarm is a very good thing for animals, but as humans, we should find a different mode. Swarm is most of the time leading to kind of military actions. So, but if you are following a team of teams mode, you all of a sudden have another kind of energy, but we don't have that experience. I didn't. I was not going through an education system, not in school, not in university, which was training me not to be competitive and to collaborate with others. And our students have the same thing. And we don't have a curriculum, we have projects. Project-based, and you just see here one portfolio from the last semester. You see we have big companies approaching us with their real-life problems, and they are asking a team of students, can you help us for one semester to solve the problem? And looking at the gas station of the future, how will that look when most of the cars will be electrical cars and there will be a longer time of charging or this kind of things, and how should those stations change? So this is something. You see a lot of companies now approaching us. Just a step back, not only big companies, but also, if you look at the right, the church. The Lutheran Church was approaching us. Organizations like the German unions are approaching us because they see what you're discussing here. Digitalization is driving them somehow crazy, and it's driving them towards a direction, towards a direction which they don't know about. So they are approaching us, and we try to help them. Also with a lot of training. I told you that we are training about 4,000 people in that kind of programs. I don't want to go too much into the details, but it was actually surprising for us. With the focus on just on students, we found out it is very good. And the companies who were coming to us and giving student projects to our semester programs, they are also finding out there is something really interesting going on, but we didn't expect so many people to follow, and also to say we want to train our management. And the other thing what they did is they copied our spaces, our interesting design thinking spaces, and there's a lot of innovation spaces now through the last 10 years in organizations like DHL. They used to have already for a longer time the Innovation Center in Troisdorf, but now there's also a design thinking space which is helping people to more and more collaborate in a new way. And if you look at the world map, that was kind of 10 years ago. There were just 2 institutions on the planet training design thinking. If you look at the world map now, it looks a little bit like this. That's just our radar. It's not complete. It's just we are trying to find out, and we're collecting the organizations coming to us, visiting us, and there's some HPIs more. There used to be 2 HPIs at D-School Stanford. Then in Potsdam, the next one was coming up in Cape Town. So in South Africa, we recently started at the beginning of the year Design Institute with Cape Town University, and a month later we opened up something in New York. So we try to be global with what we are doing, and we're trying also to build on that growing network, that global network, with our student projects and with the companies who are approaching us, which are usually global companies like you are representing here. So what we're doing there, I try to illustrate that on 2 slides usually, because you might ask, what is design thinking? Now, who of you is familiar with design thinking? I forgot to ask. Oh, this is kind of the 10% I expected, okay. So what we are actually doing, I try to illustrate in 2 slides. First thing is, where is the best source of inspiration for coming up with new ideas or for solving complex problems? In Germany, we are very much technology-oriented. You know, we ask the Fraunhofer Institute and the big research departments of large organizations. This is a fine way. Or we check out business models, South Korea, Japan, what is going on in Silicon Valley, and so we try to start there. We are actually asking people to start there. We look at the humans, look at human values. I, on purpose, don't call it the user. I say it's the human because it's actually affecting all of us. We have to check out not only the people who we are delivering something towards, but also ourselves, because we are also part of the change process through digitalization. So this is the first thing, focus on the user first. And the second chart is not that one, but this is what you find if you search on the internet for design thinking and press pictures, you get this kind of thing. You get a mess of org charts, and sometimes they say, oh, it's a 6-step, no, it's a 5-step, or it's a 3-step, and it's a circular, and so on. started to frame design thinking in a different way. We were saying it's not just a method. It's actually a kind of method set or a tool set or a mindset which helps people on that transition phase we are in right now. And it's those three core things. When I returned from Stanford 10 years ago, there was no book about design thinking on the market. There was no description, no white paper. But I had some scribbles, and I was sitting in the airplane, and this is the nice version of the three core things I was drawing there. And we are still using that as the core, as the framing of what design thinking is. First of all, we move away from the focus on the individual creative and innovation power. We focus fully on a diverse team. And when I'm talking about team, I mean a team of not 10, it's too large, not 2, it's too small, 4, 5, 6. And highly diverse. Different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, hopefully, different genders, and also handicap. Handicap is positive for us because it changes the view. If there's a wheelchair driver in the team, it helps the whole team to see things different. Second thing is space. We have to rearrange the spaces. We are all used to learning spaces which are not focusing on collaboration, not on teams, and they actually don't allow teamwork. So we had to rearrange our furniture at the HPI. We had to actually build collaboration tables because 10 years ago I was asking a lot of big companies, the big furniture manufacturers like Steelcase and Vitra, they didn't have collaboration furniture. It's hard to believe, but this kind of furniture where people are able to work, not just to drink coffee like this thing here, no, but actually to work in a productive way was not available, so we had to design them on our own. This is how it looks at our place. And we started selling them actually because people were asking, where did you get those? We just manufactured it for our own with a little company in Berlin, but now you find them in more than 200 organizations all over the planet. And the third thing is the process. Yes, it's the way how we do things. And the interesting thing with that is the little lines. It's not the 6 dots, the understand, observe, point of view, defining a point of view, the ideation, prototyping, and testing. Yes, you have to do this, but you can do this over and over again. The time of linear ways of doing things is over now. So, and this is very clear for us, I think for all of us, all of you as well, that it used to be a very, very good approach of the waterfall method to define precisely the outcome in 5 years from now and then define very precisely the 5 milestones in between. That doesn't work anymore. In this time, in the times of highly interdependent things, highly interdependent digital networks, which we are living in right now, so we have to learn to do iterative steps, and most of our students are not aware of that, are actually not using this kind of approaches. Software people do. Who of you is a software designer or engineer? Oh, I thought there were a lot of IT people here. No, very few. So those people are actually used to do that. Also designers and architects, they are used to that kind of continuously prototyping process. But if you look at a software, I don't know any piece of software which is finished. It's always a version. And this is how software developers think. They not think in a final product, they think in a version. And to do another thing. And it's usually, we could call it also a prototype. And we use those prototypes. And so this kind of triangle we try to focus on with our students, and also we do the same thing with professionals, and this is why they're approaching us. No tech involved so far. But when I asked myself, where is the hard part? I ended up there, not at the space and also not at the process. I found out, looking at more than 1,000 alumni now and looking at lots of 1,000 people from the industry running through the whole process, the hard part is to think about, intensively to think about the collaboration aspect. Why is that a problem? We are living in a world which is more or less like this. I took just a cheap picture from the internet. It should be 3-dimensional, it should be moving and growing, but let's take it like this. This is the pattern we're in right now, and all our machines, all of you have those machines. You're sitting there very quiet. Your machines are communicating intensively right now if you didn't switch them off. And we can't see it, you can't hear it. but they're doing that. But in the back of our mind, we are doing things and thinking like this. This is, I call that the Brockhaus Mode, and I started using that as a metaphor that Brockhaus, which is the most prominent German way of aggregating knowledge, and it's up and running as an encyclopedia since 200 years, and I'm using that since the time when I stepped to my bookshelf and I saw the level of dust on top of that thing, and I couldn't believe it. I said, when did I look in last time? And I couldn't remember, and I thought, interesting, that is such an interesting structure. And I started to ask myself, do I not want to know anything anymore? Because as a student, I was using that thing all the time. Who still owns an encyclopedia?
I definitely do.
Yeah, me too. Who is owning it? Who is storing it in the basement already? No, but, yeah. So I have it still upstairs. So, and of course, I want to know a lot of things all the time, and I'm using my piece of glass all the time, like you do as well. I use the networked version of the aggregation of knowledge, which is called Wikipedia or Google or Baidu or you name it. And then I stayed in front of that bookshelf. And because that structure reminded me to something that whenever I start a project and I have a first get together with the CEO of a company, first thing, we go to a whiteboard and I ask the person, please draw me a picture of your organization. Usually what happens is things like this. Oh, we have 8 departments and we have management level 1 and level 2 and we have the board up there. And I said, oh, that reminds me a bit scary to the structure of the Brockhaus. You know, it's that thing which Bertelsmann, as the owner of Brockhaus, they decided 2013 to stop printing because they figured out no one is buying the Brockhaus anymore, the paper version, and they actually missed the digitalization. Bertelsmann missed that part. They were still thinking people would buy that because it's a very nice aggregation of knowledge. So I started using this as the pattern which is disappearing, as something which is a pattern of analog times. And I'm starting to think of this as a pattern of the digital times. And yes, both is a black and white drawing, and yes, both is very simple. But I was actually looking for myself to find a simple picture for why I'm so struggling in that kind of more and more connected world. And I started thinking of, we have to get out of that Brockhaus thing, and what we are doing with the D-School, with the School of Design Thinking, is that little arrow. We try to help people to move out of that old thinking prison, which we all think is nature. This is the thing how we have to do things and how we have to organize universities, architecture, biology, and so on, and how to organize organizations. But if you look very closely at what is happening right now, you will see same thing is happening to other structures as happened to Brockhaus. It will disappear. I'm pretty sure the tip of the arrow is just there. We're on a transition path which is moving from the upper model to the lower model, but the problem is we're not very far. I would position myself up there, where the little cross is. Our students, when they come in first time, and the first day, and we had it. Two days ago, we had the next 18 new students, and I asked them, where would you position yourself? They are pointing to the tip of the arrow. But the truth is, their machines are highly connected, but their brains are in a fully competitive mode. And even the students who are applying at our place, nowadays, they are not prepared to that kind of pattern. And so I would position them up there. My little 9-year-old son, I have a 9-year-old son, 3rd grade, when he was entering school, was at the tip of that arrow. Now he's in 3rd grade. He moved a little bit more up. No, there's no pointer. He is a little bit more up. After 10 years of school, he will be very high up at that 2nd cross. This is not funny. This is really scary. That we are still running education system, school, university, which are preparing people for a world which is not existing anymore and will fade away. So this is one of the things which moved me to write a book, which was called Network Thinking. It was coming out in Chinese and in English recently, and it also made myself and a group of people think of how can we move this kind of thinking to the education field. And a friend of mine came up with that great term. He was saying, Uli, the old thing you were describing there, that pattern of Brockhaus, that is the IQ mode. We measure the intelligence of a single person, and the outcome is one number, 130.
13, that would be my IQ. Exactly.
120 or whatever, but it's one number. In schools and universities, we do it a little bit more detailed. Yeah. But what we need in that world is WeQ, is the we qualities. We need to invent something which we don't have tools to measure right now. We need to focus on the connectivity between the people, not just between the machines, no, between the people and the brains of the people. In a way, that pattern would aim towards a kind of human supercomputer and not a machine. No, it's kind of bringing the brains of the people together. And so we wrote a book about that. We started the WeQ Foundation, which is actually located there, right next to Brandenburg Gate, walking distance to the Chancellor's office, to make it closer to the politicians and also closer to the society, and not just to the companies. And I want to finish with, I have to show that, because I borrowed some of the slides from Uwe Raschke. And I want to show that it's not just theory what we are doing. It is actually adapted by the industry, and there's my favorite example of that is of the adapting of that IQ, WeQ model and the transformation with design thinking is Bosch, actually seeing that building where they brought different researchers out of the different cities into one new building, and there's an upper floor, which is a kind of D-school thing. And this was for me, one of the most important decisions the CEO of Bosch announced in September 2015, that they will move away from the individual incentives. What we are doing since 10 years, no grades, because grading, individual grading will keep people from being collaborative. Bosch did it. They were saying, for all the people, we switch from individual bonus. Yes, we still have bonus, but not individual anymore. Target agreement. We were always told that is very important. We don't do that anymore. And the reason is looking at how to get from the Brockhaus model to the network model. And if I look at that one, and this is my last slide, I borrowed that from Uwe Raschke. He showed that at the 10th anniversary of the D-School 6 weeks ago, and I was so pleased to see that he was announcing. So he was actually pointing on myself. He was saying, you used to be that kind of Brockhaus thing. Ulrich Weinberg would say, this was Brockhaus, what we were doing. But now the structure they're experimenting with in home and garden at Bosch Power Tools is a cross-functional team mode. And if you look at that picture, so they have still the functions there, but they put people in little teams, and I like that very much, it's a team of teams. So they bring people together, and they give them more autonomy. 2 hierarchy levels were just fading away. They didn't need it anymore. And it's so interesting to see that. I'm really happy that, and I would wish to see more companies moving towards that. And I hope you didn't fall asleep. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. Please stay